books out on the sidewalk.
Okay, I'll just call everyone back into the room and take your seats, please. This is the last session for the day. Thank you. And the quality doesn't stop here. We've got a very good session this afternoon. Now, we had a question up before. Yeah? Do you want to just put that back up and see how people were voting? Just had a few comments on that. We changed that into a word map. Can we do that? We're getting a bit confident now. Maybe we're not. Here we go. Let's try this. Cornflakes. Right. Okay, that's a bit silly. All right, now we're moving to the final part of the day, and I'll just remind you, I didn't make sense before we went off for a break. There's a postcard now on your table, and the postcard is for you to fill out your takeaways from today. And they will be collected off the table at the end of today, and that will be then mailed back to you at a time in the future to remind you if you did what you said you were going to do in terms of takeaways from today. So that's a way to keep you accountable. So that's good. There's also some evaluation forms on the registration desk at the end of today. So please fill those out. It's always interested to get feedback for future sessions. So we have two speakers up here. Format's changed a little bit for this last session. We have, first of all, Susan Price. And we're going to take questions straight up after each of these speakers now. So Susan leads PricewaterhouseCoopers Diversity and Inclusion Consulting Practice and works with organisations to manage and capitalise on their people, whether that be gender, age, culture, thought, or any other dimension of difference. So we look forward to hearing Susan. Thank you.
Still being here at this session. I think that's amazing. It's been a fascinating day and I was so pleased to be invited to speak today. But that you're still here, excellent. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today and paying my respects to elders past and present. And I'd also like to thank you because PwC is clearly not a sporting organisation, but sometimes we think we are, but for inviting me to share our experiences as we have been grappling with issues of diversity and inclusion in our own business. So just before I start, I did a quick recce before, but I just want to check there aren't any PwC partners in the room. If there are, do you want to stand up and identify yourselves? Okay, good. Because what I'm going to say is to really give you a bit of the warts and all experience that PwC has had and is still having. Because as so many of our speakers have said today, this is about sharing our stories of what works and also what doesn't work so that collectively organisations, whether they be sporting ones or business ones, can work together to really make their organisations more diverse and inclusive. So a little bit about PwC. We are a multidisciplinary partnership, which means we have accountants and people who aren't accountants. In Australia, we're about 6,500 people and we have offices all around the country. We're part of a global network of firms that's in about 174 countries around the world, and each firm in each country operates as its own business but under the PwC banner, which has some challenges because it's like being in a family of 174 siblings, each one with its own special characteristics and each one that thinks that it is unique and the best at what it does in the world. But PwC globally has decided that diversity and inclusion is a real priority for our business and that around the world, each firm is to pick 3 priorities to concentrate on, 2 which are set centrally, and they are gender and culture, and a 3rd which is set locally. So in Australia, we've picked disability as our 3rd area of focus, but it would be fair to say that really we're not that as much interested in diversity as we are in inclusion, because we really think diversity should be about everyone and all of the differences we have. It shouldn't be put into a couple of separate buckets. So why is PwC here? It would be fair to say that our current CEO, who's been in the role 4 years, who's a lovely man, pale and male, when he first got the job about 4 years ago, and he would be the first to admit this, I'm not telling stories out of school, he thought we'd tick the diversity box. We'd had programs for women, you know, we'd had a target for women in the partnership in 2030, had a target for people from culturally diverse backgrounds in the partnership also for 2030. Diversity was done and dusted, right? He got a bit of a rude shock in his first year. We have a partnership system and it's a big deal who gets promoted to partner. In his first year as CEO, we had 17 new partners, 1 woman. Now, I hear the room kind of going, oh, that's a bit bad. Not only is that bad, it's bad that no one kind of realised until it was in the Fin review and our competitors started having a go at us. So it would be fair to say that our CEO had a bit of an aha moment then. This often happens in diversity and inclusion matters. It's not until it's something that kind of affects you personally that you get it. And he really started to rethink, had we done enough? Clearly we hadn't. And what should we be doing about diversity and inclusion? And that led to a total rethink of our strategy and our approach to it. Now, there's been a bit of talk today about the business case. I'm not expecting you to read this in great detail, but to sell it to our partners, we really had to say, this is the smart thing to do. There is a business case behind it. The evidence is in that organisations that are more diverse make more money. That's the head. That's the hard numbers. But we also recognise that it was the right thing to do because at its heart, this is also a human rights issue. Now, that's a bit confronting for a bunch of accountants sometimes to think about human rights. You know, we're used to numbers and ledgers and spreadsheets. But part of the PwC journey has been recognising that we are more than just a firm that is about making money and that we have a bigger purpose in the world. And we also have a vision. And the PwC vision at first glance looks a bit weird, right? It's to realise and discover the potential of ... I don't know how many people here watch Utopia, that show on the ABC. I had a little laugh last week because, you know, a few ... in that show. But really what this is a statement that whether it's our people, whether it's our clients, we really want to help realise the potential of everyone who works for us. Not just the potential of a particular privileged section of our workforce, but everyone. And that's underpinned by our 6 values that are up there. Now, one of the values is embrace differences. I would have said in the past that PwC had an unstated value of tolerate differences. Because, you know, it's not allowed now to say out loud the things that some of our partners might still think. So on the surface, it looks like we're an incredibly open and welcoming organisation. But we know that under the surface, there are some beliefs and values in our current partnership and employee group that still need some improvement. So to come out and say actually embrace differences is a big step forward for us. But what we also know is when you look at our foyer in any of our offices on graduate intake day, it is fantastic. Roughly 50-50 gender split, in fact, if not slightly more women than men. An incredible range of cultural backgrounds in that intake pool. As we go up our levels of seniority, we do get maler, and we get paler, and we get staler, and we become almost homogenous, until by the time you get to our partnership group, women make up currently 17% of the partnership. Now that's despite the fact that women have been graduating from business degrees and law degrees in more numbers than men for probably what, I don't know, 25 years or more. But we have kind of created a model of what a successful partner looks like that is overwhelmingly a white man, probably with a stay-at-home wife who does all of the caregiving, who can devote all of his time to a huge job. And increasingly, not only is that not a model that our women don't aspire to, but it's not a model that our young men aspire to. So it's something that we know we really need to change. And what's really been important is our clients are expecting us to be more diverse. So we love surveying everything. We survey our clients, we survey our employee population. We did a survey of our clients and it spits out what is called a Net Promoter Score, and we looked pretty good until we split that score by female clients and male clients. Male clients loved us. Female clients, and increasingly they're our buyers, so chief counsel, head of tax, head of HR, didn't like us so much. And when we dived into the comments, it was things like, I'm a retail organisation, why did you send me a straight all-male team to work on my retail assignment? Or, I'm the head of tax and I have 3 senior women in my tax executive, why did you send me 3 white men? So once we started splitting out those numbers, we really started to realise that this wasn't just a challenge for us in terms of internal, it was also a challenge for us as a business issue. So I've mentioned already, we talked about diversity, but we really want to focus on inclusion. And Stan touched on this morning. Diversity, I think, has got a bit bogged down in wanting to put people in boxes or in buckets. So how many women do we have? As if all women were all the same. We totally turned ourselves inside out on Asian cultural background. And because a lot of us are accountants, we acronymised it as well. So how many ACBs have we got? Now, there's a great story in our firm where in one business that was looking at our partnership target, 3 people sitting around the table going, oh, we're okay, we've got our ACB. One of those partners was born here, but his parents are Sri Lankan. And he said, oh, who's that? And they said, well, it's you. And he said, I'm not ACB. And they said, but you've got to be or we won't meet our target. And so this is the kind of ridiculousness that can happen when you start to wanting to categorise everyone and put them in these buckets. And to be fair, also assume certain characteristics belong to that bucket and that bucket only. So once we've got past that hurdle, we realised, in fact, let's forget about the buckets and the boxes and let's really focus on being inclusive. Because if we're inclusive for everyone. We're not just going to be inclusive for women or inclusive for ACB. We're going to be inclusive of everyone. And what that did, that fundamentally shifted for us, shifted the debate and discussion for us, was that suddenly the dominant group, which are our Anglo-Saxon men, were part of the solution. Whereas previously they had seen this as this was someone else's problem, it sat in HR, it was nothing to do with them. In fact, why did they need to worry about this? They were fine. And Paul, I really would have liked to have thought that a lot of them were thinking, this isn't any good that I'm sitting around a table with 7 people that look like me. Because in fact, many of them really liked that. And the challenge for us has been in shaking it up and giving people skills to manage the fact that they are not sitting around a table with people that look like them. So how have we done it? We've really followed this framework, which can be summarised a little more simply than this as heads, hearts, leadership and data. So the head bit I've talked about, we needed to make the business case. We needed to explain to people in numbers why this was important for us. With the heads and with the hearts and building an inspirational vision, we had to help people get to that personal moment of realising this was important to them. For some of our older partners, it's when their daughters enter the workforce and they get what I call late onset feminism. Whatever it is doesn't really matter to me. But the reality is, as human beings, until something affects us personally, we tend not to pay any attention to it. You know yourself, your watch breaks, you're looking for a new watch. Suddenly you notice the watch everyone else is wearing. When you're pregnant, for those of you in the room who have been, suddenly it feels like half the world's pregnant. Where did all these pregnant women come from? Never noticed them before. What we've done as a firm is ask our people to put on their diversity and inclusion goggles and start looking at the world through those eyes. So when they go into a meeting, who do they see around the table? Instead of just thinking, oh yeah, the team's here, who actually is in the room? Who's doing the speaking? Who gets the job of cleaning up the cups and paperwork afterwards? When we are asked to sit on a panel, who's speaking on the panel? Is it a good representation of people? Gender, culture, experience. Suddenly putting on those D&I goggles has meant that we've looked at every aspect of our business through different eyes. And that brings me to the data point. Again, we had a lot of data as an organisation, almost overwhelming sometimes, but we just never looked at it with our D&I goggles on. So last year we did an incredibly detailed gender pay analysis. And for the first time, which is a little bit staggering in some regards, we actually separated out male and female wages, base, bonus. We looked at it by performance rating, and there were some differences there. In the past, we just never thought to do that exercise. And we've applied that methodology at every level of our business. Because in fact, diversity and inclusion don't sit like the salt and pepper shaker that you sprinkle on the end of your meal. For us, diversity and inclusion needs to be embedded in everything we do now. So it's in our recruitment processes, it's in our promotion processes, it's in our remuneration processes. And what we're starting to see is that we're getting representational promotion. That what a surprise. When you have a balance of candidates that you're recruiting, you tend to get more balanced recruits. So we've really worked hard at embedding that. And so the first step for us was really getting on those D&I goggles. And unconscious bias training was part of it. It's not the silver bullet that's going to fix everything, but it was the first part in getting everyone to start thinking, I'm not the completely rational human being that I thought I was. And the second bit of it, which we're now really working hard at, is getting our leaders and particularly our middle managers comfortable with the idea that they're sitting at a table with people who aren't like them. Because for a lot of those people, this is a fairly new experience for them. And one of the ways we've done that is through a campaign that our UK firm has used quite successfully called Open Minds. And I'd just like to show you a video of that now. So the way we've used that video has been really powerful in small groups to start us having conversations. So having those difficult conversations that in the past we would never have had, but actually instead of making assumptions about people, starting to actually question and find out as individuals what people were really interested in and what they wanted to do and how they expected to be treated at work. And what we found is when we have those conversations, we're actually often pleasantly surprised by the results, even though they can be awkward at first. So those conversations, coupled with targets that operate for partner admission this year and every year. So we have a gender target this year of a minimum of 40% men, minimum 40% women, and 20% depending on the pool, and a target for culturally diverse candidates of a minimum of 20%. They operate now and they operate next year. So all of a sudden this is this current crop of leaders' challenge, and not just for this year but next year. We have external scrutiny through an advisory board that has a number of independent people sitting on it, holding our CEO accountable. And as I said before, we have really tried to embed that looking at things in a D&I lens through every aspect of our business. So just to finish up, and then I'm happy to take some questions, the things we've really tried to work on at a very practical level for individuals at every level of seniority in our business are these. To slow down our thinking, because we know that when we make quick decisions, we tend to either over-rely on our assumptions about people, or we go to our go-to people all the time, and those people tend to be people just like us. And what we found when we analysed groups was there was always an in crowd. And if you weren't in the in crowd, you tended to miss out on job opportunities, secondments, experiences that you didn't, that other people in your group were getting, and come review time, you were missing out on promotion. So this is about actually slowing down and not just asking the person you'd always ask, but thinking, who else should I be taking to this meeting? Not making assumptions. So the classic one is the first one in the video, where the senior partner sees the young woman who's pregnant and assumes she's giving up her career, when that's clearly not her intention. Asking lots of questions. Now, this is the one that is often challenging, because when you have a younger employee who's asking you, but why? But why? Sometimes you want to say, just because I said so. And as a parent, we all know how that can feel. In the workplace, you're not allowed to say, just go to your room and do it. And finally, and this is the point that Paul made and others have made, if you're not consciously looking for other viewpoints, you will almost inevitably exclude them. So instead of sitting in a meeting and saying, this is what I think, does everyone disagree? We've started protocols like simply asking, checking around the room, what do you think, Fred? What do you think, Mary? What do you think, May? To try and bring out those different perspectives. So there's some of my practical tips that we have really tried to work on in our business. We've got a long way to go. I encourage you to have a look at our partner admission numbers this year and send our CEO a nasty email if we don't make our targets. And I'm now happy to take some questions. Yep, at the front here.
Very quickly, are they targets or quotas, and what's the difference?
Okay, I'm going to put my kind of legal hat on now. They're targets in the sense that a quota is something that we would recognise really can only be set by a legislative act or some kind of parliamentary intervention. We've had a lot of debate around targets and whether targets can exist with the concept of merit or whether targets exclude merit. We have had some work to do in managing both backlash from disaffected people who feel they may miss out because of the target, and also from people in the target group who say, well, I don't want to be appointed just to hit the target. But that's been an exercise in explaining that we have been kidding ourselves if we think we have operated on a merit-based system, because clearly it hasn't been working on merit, and this isn't about giving anyone an unfair advantage. It's actually about levelling the playing field to give people the same opportunity. question over here.
Talk about having the inclusion as part of your induction process and so forth. Sorry. You talked about having that as part of your induction process. What follow-up do you have from there? Like what steps happen from there?
Yeah, so the training sessions that we do with our staff, we now run annually. And there's both in-group small sessions and an online e-learn that staff do. It's what we're finding though is in fact our younger employees, they just completely expect that we are good at this stuff. And they are the ones who will actually hold their senior managers to account by questioning, hey, why did this happen? One of the things we have done is sign up for a UN partnership for he for she. And that's been quite challenging to explain to our younger male staff why they perhaps need to be involved in a movement that is supporting women when women outgunned them at school, outgunned them at university and got more of the graduate places from them. But the other thing we're doing is really embedding this in again, not as a separate standalone D&I training module, but building it into the other regular compliance training we do. So, for example, our annual bullying and harassment and discrimination training has a strong focus on respect and inclusion. So it's not, again, seen as a separate standalone activity that you need to do to tick the D&I box, but where it can be, it's embedded into our everyday processes.
Thank you, Susan. I'm Andrea from Bendigo Bank. One of the key ways of actually making change happen, I guess, is keeping people accountable. How do you keep your partners and your senior leaders or leaders across the organisation accountable for leading or being inclusive leaders?
That's still a work in progress, but I can tell you that we're organised in separate businesses. So our assurance business, our tax and legal business, our consulting business. And each of those businesses has the same target of 40-40-20 on gender and 20 on cultural diversity. And if those targets aren't met in each business, there's a consequence financially for the partners of that business.
Okay. Oh, one more.
Sorry, me. I know that when we had a conversation before, Susan, you talked about some unintended consequences in relation to implementing the program. And you mentioned that, you know, you started off talking about diversity and you thought you were hitting all the right buttons, but something wasn't quite right. Could you share that with the room?
I think it's that move from recognising that if you start off by focusing on numbers and you just, and I think the Asian cultural background is a great example where what's motivated by good intent, because again, if I can ask you to imagine our foyer on graduate intake day, a lot of our graduates visibly at least look like they have some kind of Asian background. But it just completely got out of control with partners wanting to interrogate, and these are the detailed guys, almost overwhelmingly guys, who were wanting to, you know, delve into, well, were they born here? How long have people been here? We need to apply some kind of test, and it got completely out of control into whether people really was going to self-identify as being of an Asian cultural background. So that's a clear example of where we needed to sort of go, okay, we need to stop this and we need to rethink it and we need to come at it from a completely different angle, which is now, if you say to me, you recognise or you will identify as being from a diverse cultural background, that's enough. I don't need to see your passport. I don't want to see where your parents were born. I don't want to interrogate you anymore. That's sufficient. So we've really had to, with some of our thinking, pull back from wanting to dive very deeply into sort of minute analytics that really took us nowhere and became more divisive when what we were trying to really achieve was a more inclusive workplace.
Thanks, Susan. That's terrific. Thank you very much. Very practical tips and tools. Thank you.